Knowledge Services welcomes you to the next Because You Need to Know. I'm your host, Edwin K. Morris. I serve as president and founder of this organization, and we are thrilled to offer this educational program. These design conversations bring you people's experiences from all over the globe in the field of knowledge management, nonprofit work, and innovation.
Thank you for listening to Because You Need to Know, the reference podcast in knowledge management. My name is Soni Toneme. As an art administrator, Because You Need to Know has been my go-to podcast and has helped me hone my management skills. Please consider sponsoring the podcast with your business.
My name is Kim Sherwin. I live in Sydney, Australia. I'm currently working at Aurecon as a Director of Knowledge. I've worked for 23 years in the field of libraries and knowledge. If I was stranded on a desert island, the three things I must have would be my partner, our record player, and our vinyl collection. I think we'd be okay. The absolute best piece of advice I was ever given was don't spend too much time on the things you love. You'll only end up resenting it. And that was from a senior leader that I once worked with. It's so true. The last book that I read is a book called Chavs. It's about working class in the UK because I have an absolute fascination with social class and particularly from the country where I was born.
Can you just give me the spelling of the title? I didn't catch it.
Chavs.
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 Does that mean something? Is that a...
It stands for Cheltenham Average. So it's an expression used related to a pocket of the working class.
Aha. And probably not in a positive light, I'm taking it.
Depends which side.
Okay. Kim, how does a librarian cross over? Because I see them as not the same. How does a librarian cross over to knowledge management?
Great question. And I'm not sure I have the technical answer, but my little journey was I fell into it. I got asked one day when I started a new role, I was in the role of senior librarian, and one day somebody said to me, in fact, day 2 of that role, would you like to do knowledge? You look like you'd be good at knowledge. And I went, sure, why not?
Well, they actually said, you look like you'd be good
Absolutely.
in knowledge. That would look good on you, like it's a fashion statement. What was your impression? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. What? I mean,
yeah, so it's day 2 in the role, and I'm not going to say no. So I just said yes, and I thought, well, we'll work it out. And, and kind of some almost 10 years later, I'm still working it out, but I can definitely see over the last few years where the connection lies. And a lot of it is around my library background was focused on research. So I was interested in kind of original source material and finding that. And then for me, knowledge is the extension of that. And it's turning information into knowledge where people's experience is therefore applied.
What's the scope of knowledge being managed in your current position as director? I mean, are you all internal facing kind of knowledge management or external or? We're
all internal facing. So I work at a company called Aurecon, and we have just under 7,000 people who are part of the organisation spread across Australia, New Zealand and into Asia. And the remit of my team is to support and to encourage a culture of knowledge sharing. Where knowledge is, in effect, our largest asset at the organisation, the knowledge of our people, and it's what we sell to our clients. So there's a real emphasis on encouraging the sharing of knowledge so that we're not starting from scratch every time. We're learning as we go, and therefore we can be better at serving our clients when we pool our collective knowledge.
So there's been a little hubbub in the last 6 months about the terminology of calling knowledge an asset. And some of the pushback is, well, that's an economic term. It means a hard tack kind of either money or some asset. So do you see it as a difference at all? Or is it just a fluid knowledge is an asset?
I try not to get caught up on the words and the semantics around all of this. To me, I kind of like to talk in the language of the business. We do talk in the language of assets, and we pay for assets, and assets are our people, and we also build and design assets. So there's lots of levels to the word asset.
Yeah.
So I try not to get too caught up on it, because I often find myself in kind of in the spiral of decline
Right.
rather than actually trying to do stuff with knowledge.
Yeah, and I'd agree. I had that conversation with someone recently, and it just seems to be this spiral effect of blah, 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 blah. Let's just forget about trying to chase that, and let's just do something.
Yep.
So I'm with you. The organization, or let's talk about what your branch from librarianship and your history, what set you up to look good for knowledge? What set you up? Was it your haircut? Was it the attitude in your eye? Was it your resume? What made you be really good at knowledge management?
That's a really great question. I think part of me I have this can-do attitude. I'm really enthusiastic. And so when an opportunity comes along, much like, oh, you look like you'd be good at knowledge, I just say yes, and we'll work it out. just take it. And, that's been to my detriment at times. Like, I've taken on too much.
Sure.
But also, it's kind of working in organizations that give you the freedom and the scope to go try things. Yeah. And then if it's not what it should be, you're encouraged to change it. Mm-hmm. But it's really just trying to progressively or incrementally move things forward. And I think just taking these opportunities and kind of having an open mind about where your career goes, I think it's just, there's no secret sauce for me. It's just being open.
Okay. It kind of sounds like you have an entrepreneurship kind of vibe. There's a bravery around what you just went through in your example of what happened, that you just said, okay, I'll figure it out later. Because there's something that is inside you that says, hey, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? So where does that come from?
I think, I'm not sure where it...
I know, right? So let's back up the Wayback Machine and think about that. Did you have a family member that was a small business person? Did you have some kind of imprint from a neighbor, from a teacher? Or I'm just curious where the spark came from. Or is it just genetic in your family? Is everybody like that in your family?
To a point. I don't have an entrepreneurial family. Okay. It's almost a personality type for me. I just get really excited about doing new things and challenging the status quo, and people seeing value in what I can contribute. And it kind of gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling. So I just go for it. And I've been lucky that I've worked in organizations that have supported me with being a bit wafty at times, and just giving stuff a go. So I wish there was a kind of a planned answer to that one.
Yeah, well, and
I guess
I bring that up because people just assume things that the role you fell into, that's normal. And maybe it is, or maybe it's not. But I really wanted to pinpoint that your reaction was probably more not normal for most people, would be my guess. I think what you did was, like you said, on day 2, you're like, sure. I think a lot of people would have said, well, let me think about, or whatever. There'd have been pushback of some level, and you just jumped in. So I'm more interested in how that has served you to bring to what you're at now.
I think,
was this the first incident that you can think of that you just said, sure, let's go?
Yeah, I think professionally, yeah, and to have that door opened, I think was, somebody can see what I'm potentially capable of, so I'll latch onto that. I think also with my library background as well, like, libraries are very expensive. The value is immense, but they also cost a lot of money. I think trying to demonstrate value has always been something that I've been quite passionate about, and I have a little motto, like, do something, tell someone, because libraries need to fly their flag. And I guess that probably was where my response or enthusiasm to step into knowledge came from. Is this going to help with the library stuff? Is this going to help with my own profile? Is this going to help with our team? Absolutely it did, and it's opened so many doors for me. But I think it's coming from the, goodness, we are an expensive resource, we better show some value here.
Let's talk about that. You said you work in an industry and or organization that pretty much has everything labeled with an economic factor. You're proven plus or minus on a scale here of economic cost or investment. What are the things that you really tell as far as the value exchange in the role that you do and what you do with the company? What are some of the indicators that say, oh, look at that, look at this, look at that?
Stories. So I think for me, a key piece around all of this is communication. Back to what I said before, do something, tell someone.
Okay.
If we're not out there beating our own drum, nobody will do it for us. And it's about how you tell the stories. It's not, oh, check the knowledge team out. It's more positioning other people and trying to find ways to make others shine is what I'm really quite interested in. But then quite crude metrics around number of bums on seats at events that we might run, number of engagements with a post. But, trying to capture the true value of knowledge is a really, really difficult one.
So how are the stories being captured and shared and developed?
In my team, I'm lucky enough to have somebody who has a role of communications. We have a dedicated role who works on sharing those stories. It's also us being more aware of what's actually happening across the business, so we can then share that kind of stuff, because we get a lot of people coming to us as almost a signpost within the business. Where do I find? What do I do? We use things like, the catchily newly titled Viva Engage, formerly known as Yammer, to share stories on. We've got a very strong relationship with our internal comms team. We run some quite high profile events in the organization. So it's being visible. And we also have a brand in the organization as well. So people know it's knowledge and can see the kind of the culture that we're trying to drive.
Do you find that the corporate culture and or strategic plan has you front and center? I mean, are you like, hey, look, we're right here. This is what our role is?
We're very much kind of a silver thread throughout the whole of our corporate plan. And we sit as part of a broader Eminence digital and innovation team, which is kind of almost a fundamental and what we class as a core winning strength of our organization. Knowledge also appears in the onboarding process. It also appears in what we call our Let's Talk process. So that's kind of our performance review. So we're trying to find ways of making or having knowledge more integrated in how Oricon works, rather than a thing at the end when we've got no time to collect knowledge. It's a challenge.
You've used the word culture multiple times, and it sounds like your silver thread concept is that it is woven to strengthen the culture. You call it that? Would that be right?
That's what my long-term aspiration is. We talk knowledge, like it's very much in the vocabulary of the organization.
Okay.
I'd like us to go further and for it to be ingrained in everything we do.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet, but we've made huge inroads over the last few years.
It's that once you start establishing the image and the value that it can create, then it's just easier. It's no longer a hard sell, and it starts to build. That momentum starts to build, and people talk, right? Going back to the culture, that's the best way to get some kind of word of mouth, grassroots kind of approach. Is it something that is that for you? I mean, is your strategy in rolling out the KM, is it top down, would you say, or is it grassroots, bottom up?
We're trying to go for all angles, because I don't think one approach is going to get us the desired outcome. So we have to look at it like in the middle. We also need to look at who our key stakeholders are. So we work quite closely with what we call our capability leaders, as like communities of practice. So we're trying to have knowledge part of every stage of how Oricon currently works. And also one decision that we made, I mean, I've only been at the organization just under a year, but one decision we made fairly soon after I joined was we were going to drop the use of the word management from knowledge management. And that was quite a deliberate thing on my part, because I wanted to shift the dial with how the team was perceived. We're here to facilitate the sharing of knowledge. We're not here to manage everybody's knowledge, because we're a very, very small team. And it's just the expectation that puts on what the role of our team is immense. So this has really helped with trying to position us as about the culture of sharing knowledge, not necessarily the formalized process of sharing knowledge.
So it kind of sounds that you've encapsulated your efforts around what I would term learning and development, or learning and training. You're trying to get skills and behaviors reinforced
Yeah.
throughout the organization, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely more about behavioral things, about what's going to drive people to share and what are the reasons people don't share. And, we know we have a couple of questions in our organizational survey about knowledge, and we know some of the barriers. And so we're trying to work with those barriers. And you get a great insight from across the breadth of our business about the pain points and also our opportunities. So we're really using that feedback to drive where we go as well.
In the future of your organization and most organizations that have transitioned to a digital workspace or work much more robust digital platforms, where does the role of the human fit in critical thinking?
The human is center to all of this. Much like what I shared at the beginning, it's the asset of knowledge, which derives from the human, is central to where this all goes. We have a knowledge strategy, 3 pillars. The middle pillar is around nurturing a knowledge-sharing culture, and that recognizes the role of the human is center to where this goes. We talk about the future. The future feels like it's here at the moment with artificial intelligence.
Right.
And that
every day is a new day,
absolutely.
Oh.
And we can't talk about AI without talking about humans.
Yeah.
And I think absolutely a fundamental role for the human to play, both in terms of content contribution, but then in also output validation and critical thinking. And I think we're going to see a shift with the investment that we put into helping people with AI literacy and digital literacy.
What is the key attribute a person, if you're going to look to expand your team in the knowledge work, knowledge and innovation, what's the key attribute you seek?
Somebody who is open-minded and willing to give it a go without having all of the answers, because that's something I've picked up throughout my career. You can be an expert in something, but you can't know all of the answers. And particularly given this move to AI, we're kind of living and breathing it as it's evolving. You can't be an expert in all of this. So you have to surround yourself with people who know more than you do about things that you don't know about, and kind of work as very much as a part of a team.
Well, it's part of just the whole human competition and the ego that has to kind of get tamped down a little bit in order to have full collaboration actually happen. So there's maturity there.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think early on in my career, I thought I could do it all and I thought I knew it all, and not trying to sound like a smart ass or anything. but you do, and you go to university and think you're being spat out as an expert, when the reality of when you hit the workplace is quite different. And particularly given the type of organization that I work in, is we're so broad in terms of the disciplines that we cover. There's no way that you could possibly know it all. I think it's that adaptability. And I think that's where my librarian skills and working in different sectors have really kind of helped me. You don't need to know the subject matter. It's the skills that you've got to help work with the experts.
I would agree with that. I think a generalist is probably going to prove top of the heap in another 20 years that has a little bit of everything. But not only the breadth and maybe a mile wide and an inch deep, right, of knowledge, they also have to have comprehension in that critical skill thing, because you can have all this, you can have this wide view and spectrum, but if you don't have the comprehension to understand and be a broker for someone else of all that knowledge, it's useless.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great word, a broker. And it's also, you need to be very well connected as well. So, as I said, we're often used as a signpost, but we take every opportunity to meet new people where we can. And then, I had this conversation with X, Y, and Z, and now somebody else has come and I can connect those two. So we're very much in the business of connecting the dots as well.
Yeah. You're not connecting the dots just to facilitate a requirement of your place. You're doing it out of just inquiry. You've got an inquiring mind that wants to learn or understand more.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, in your learned years, what would be your definition of knowledge and management if we had management after knowledge? What would that definition be?
I mean, for me, knowledge is very much about people's experiences and insights, and then the application of their wisdom, and then the value comes from sharing it with others in whatever means or medium. And I think one of my observations of, last few years in the industry is people get caught up on what knowledge management means. I think it's more what's under the hood, and particularly in type of organization that I work, people just want to loosely know what you do, but it's more about the value that you bring. So I think very much knowledge or knowledge management is dependent on the type of organization. There's some core principles, absolutely, but it's really what the organization that you're operating in needs and where the value lies for that business.
In your description, it sounds more of a community resource or a community
absolutely
effort.
Yeah, because we're a large organization and everybody has got something to contribute to helping move Oricon forward. For me, knowledge also needs to be an inclusive concept, where if you work in an enterprise services team, if you're part of the people team or, HR, finance, legal, comms, you've all got valuable knowledge to share to help move things forward. So it's almost this individual aspect, but the combination of the individuals creates something really valuable for the organization to move it forward.
Well, I would almost say maybe your bachelor's has as much to do with where you're at as does your librarianship. I see you have a bachelor's in sociology. This is all sociology stuff you're talking about. Yeah, I know. You're like, yep, you're right.
Yep. And the one regret I do have about my education, and maybe I should go and do it, is I wished I'd got a psychology background as well. Ooh. Because I've become fascinated with how people share, the drivers behind those sorts of things, and absolutely the sociology, because I'm really interested in the people aspect. But then there's people plus the mind. And I think it's a really rich combination, sometimes with an element of political studies in there. But
well, I think you're onto something there, because I can remember explaining to someone who was a Buddhist at that point years ago what knowledge management was about. And she's like, you're talking about ascension. You're talking about reaching Zen.
Yep.
Of that ilk, or just, we're wise people. We're wise and we share and we teach each other. And
yeah.
That's interesting. So is there anything on the scope of the next master's maybe, or what?
I've looked. I just don't know if I've got the firepower anymore to do it. But I absolutely do read in that space, and it's something that is a personal interest, but not just at work. But also another area that I think is very much aligned to knowledge is around comms and change, because often this journey of knowledge management is that it's trying to drive behaviors, but also trying to change how we do something to get to a better place. And I think sometimes those comms skills are undervalued in our industry.
So you're basically just saying just pure communication skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because some of what you talked about is that there's a little bit of marketing involved with selling your results or selling your story or selling. And I say that because really the essence of what you talked about a few minutes ago is that you have to keep in the public eye, public being the organization, and hey, we're doing this and we're doing that. And that's a bit of a marketing piece, but the communication element, what is critical in communication that you see serves you best?
Being able to tell the story and what's in it for the reader, not just what I want people to know about what we're doing.
Writing for the consumer,
yes.
Writing for the reader. We need more of that.
It's challenging in an organization because every team has got something great to share. So you've got to really think about the user in terms of consumption and channel, cadence and all those sorts of things. But I try and put myself and everything I do into the typical user or typical persona's shoes. Why should they care about what we're doing?
Why? The why. Yes. That should always start with the why. Why are we doing this, and why would anybody read this? And yeah, that's perfect.
Yep.
We're getting close on time, so I want to give you the opportunity. Is there any bit of advice, and I know you started off with a really great piece of advice, but is there any resource as a leader in the KM world of what you do? Is there a resource that is fresh in your mind that you would suggest anybody to pick up and utilize?
Oh, There's lots. I think it's also about where your interest lies and finding where your interest lies and how it aligns to the work that you're doing. So I love nothing more than a good scroll on LinkedIn just to see what people are up to, what's going on. And then if something piques my interest, I'll go and read a little more. I don't go to one source, and I think that's the librarian in me as well. Is I'm curious and a generalist, and sometimes I think I'm what's this expression, a master of nothing, really. I just got this general interest in learning, exploring, and thinking how we can apply that to what we do.
Well, thank you for your wise advice to continually learn, because that's what I heard you just say.
Yes.
Just continually seek and learn.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Kim. It was a joy.
Thank you, Edwin. I enjoyed that immensely.
Thank you for joining this extraordinary journey, and we hope the experiences gained add value to you and yours. See you next time at Because You Need to Know. If you'd like to contact us, please email byntk@pioneer-ks.org or find us on LinkedIn.